737, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. All kinds of drama in Washington, D.C. in the House of Representatives. Congressman Scott DeJarlais is joining us here on WTN. Congressman, I know that it's been some long hours for you. How are you feeling this morning?
Well, I'm glad that we got it done. As you said, there's a little drama, but it seems like that's the order of business these days. So I'm glad that we got it across the finish line.
What time did everything end?
Well, we started with a couple suspension votes, and the budget bill was sandwiched in between. The first suspension was open for over an hour, where they were arguing with a handful of people that apparently hadn't gotten to yes. Normally, we don't go to the floor until we know we have the votes, and so yeah, the Democrats were getting testy and yelling, and then they put the second suspension up, which usually means we failed and they didn't get the right people on board. So we had actually, probably over 2 hours voted on two suspensions, and then I was headed back to the office, and we get a notice to come back to the floor, and so somehow I guess they got 2 or 3 or 4 holdouts into the Speaker's office and had the president call them and probably just stress the importance of team and getting this done. And next thing you know, we're back and we get it passed. There was one Republican who voted no. I'm not even sure. I can guess. But so we end up passing, I think, 217 to 215. And our margin right now, as you know, is 218 to 215 because we have 2 vacant seats in Florida that'll be filled with Republicans probably in April. And we'll be back to 220, 215. But then we'll lose Elise Stefanik, and we'll have to fill her seat. So, we have a razor-thin majority, and we have to play as a team here. In 2017, we went through the same thing. We had a larger margin, but we had 3 big items that we wanted to get done that year, and we only got 1 of the 3 because of people holding out and not sticking together. And so I'm glad that we were able to get that done last night.
Thomas Massie was the lone holdout, they say, for the Republicans.
that would have been my guess. He's a libertarian from Kentucky, nice guy, very similar to Rand Paul, but hard to sway.
Well, there are reports now that one of your fellow congressmen from Tennessee, Tim Burchett, got a call from President Trump. Can you confirm that actually happened? I've got a text out to the congressman, but I'm kind of curious as to what those phone calls are like.
Well, I don't know. I heard the same thing, and Tim is good to put out little videos of himself walking and talking, and he said something about going to the woodshed, and my guess is that President Trump, doesn't mind talking to people if they have real concerns, if they're just seeking attention or want to talk to the president. There's better ways to do that. I'm sure the president isn't impressed when he has to lean on people, depending on the reason. If it's a good reason and they have a legitimate concern, then that's fine. Yeah. I don't know what the situation with Tim Burchett was. I've been talked to and asked, but I know some people were concerned about Medicaid cuts. Some people were concerned about state and local taxes. New York and other states do that, so they don't get to deduct it from their federal. We won't get into all that, but so there was people on that you'd be considered moderate Republicans that had concerns on Medicaid cuts. I don't know what the people on the far right had concerns about because it's a pretty tough bill. The Senate's going to take it now. Of course, they passed their bill. It's going to be. They wanted to do 2 reconciliation bills, which I think is dangerous. I think we can get it all done in one on the first try. That's going to be better in the long run because these things can fall apart in a hurry, as you saw.
Yeah, they sure can. Let's see here. $4.5 trillion in tax cuts survives the House votes. Obviously, that is a victory for Trump. This is just an extension of the 2017 tax cuts?
Exactly. Everybody married filing jointly gets a standard deduction of $29,200, and the tax brackets are set. If that were to expire, that's what taxes would increase like 22% on the average person. And so, the Democrats like to say this is just tax cuts for billionaires, but I know it affects me and pretty much everyone I know across the income spectrum. That saves them a lot of money, and we want to pay federal debts through different means. Trump, obviously talks about tariffs and keeping taxes low keeps money in Americans' pockets. And in the meantime, we're working on cutting government waste. And I think you'd mentioned that we're going to get around to talking about Doge and Elon Musk at some point as well.
Yeah. So one thing, the resolution fulfilled Donald Trump's directive to act on the debt limit, raising it by $4 trillion next couple of years. And so talk about that, because that is something, obviously, Thomas Massey, Tim Burchett, a lot of folks, you have talked about this as well, where we do have this debt limit and there has been a cap on it. Donald Trump wanted some wiggle room. I think that's probably the best way to describe it. Maybe there's a better way to describe it.
Yeah.
But there are some budget hawks that will look at that and say that that was the wrong thing to do, to raise that debt limit, $4 trillion. Talk about the criticisms that no doubt some people will level against Republicans for doing that.
Well, the government is a very poorly run business, if you want to look at it as a business, and it's run on taxpayer money. But there's an adage in business, and Trump's a developer. You got to have money to make money. And if you don't have the flexibility to implement new ideas, to bring industries back to the United States, to create jobs back here in the United States, and quit relying on foreign entities for pharmaceuticals, auto parts, you name it, then you're going to fail. And to not raise the debt limit, I came here, I was the same way. I think I voted against almost all debt limit increases. But bottom line is, people say, well, do not do any deficit spending, balance the budget. Then the only way to do that now is to cut Social Security, to cut Medicare, to cut defense. And, those are the three big drivers of our debt. And when you talk about that to the general population, if you're getting near retirement, you paid into Social Security all your life, you paid into Medicare all your life, you want those earned benefits, and I understand that. So to make radical cuts to those would be widely unpopular. So you have to have a longer-term strategy. You can't just do it all of a sudden. People think they're doing it all of a sudden with Doge and the cuts that he's making. But, Elon Musk, I hear, well, he's an unelected bureaucrat. Well, to my knowledge, there's 435 elected people in the House, 100 in the Senate, and, the president, and everyone else is unelected. So you've been dealing all your life with unelected bureaucrats running your life, whether it's in the FBI, DOJ, Department of Education, people making decisions for you. So I don't know why they're so upset about Elon Musk, because, yeah, he's unelected, but so is about everybody else up here that's in the deep state and that runs Washington.
Well,
so what he's doing,
and we could also, Congressman, if I may, talk about the NGOs that have been getting millions and millions of dollars. Congressman, hold on one sec. 7:45. TN Congressman Scott DeJarlais is joining us on the Newsmaker Hotline on Nashville's Morning News. Congressman, let me ask you, as far as Elon Musk and as far as Doge, need some audio if I could, KGB. There's been a lot of hand-wringing on the left regarding Elon Musk. You just mentioned some of it. And I guess part of my question would be, are you satisfied with what you're seeing so far? There were some reports that there were some Republicans, specifically in the House, that have been frustrated with Elon Musk and how he's been working things through Doge and lack of communication, these kinds of things. What are you hearing from your from your co-Congress people?
Yeah, well, I kind of looked at that because there was a couple articles out. Republicans are complaining. One's Lisa Murkowski from Alaska, almost a Democrat. And there's been a couple guys that went to town halls. There was one in Georgia, Dr. McCormick, I think his name is, and the town halls are being infiltrated by, I don't know if you remember Indivisible Tennessee, but it was started in the Obama era. So you announce a town hall and they get hijacked by these folks that come in. They're almost like paid protesters. And so they're the ones screaming. I pay attention to who's calling the office, and I get updates every day from my staff, who's calling and what they're saying. We're not getting a lot of complaints from conservatives and Republicans that make up about 70% of my constituency. Most of them are coming from people that seem like, they're being paid or told to call the office, because not too many people I know who voted for President Trump, which was, 70% of my district, wanted him to make cuts to bureaucracy, to make cuts to the federal budget. And there's a lot of dead wood in the government. There's the office space that's unoccupied. There's employees that aren't doing anything. I think it's genius that Elon Musk asked people, you can't answer a question of 5 things you did last week. You must not be very productive, or you were on vacation, in which case you could say I'm on vacation. I could give you 50 things I did yesterday. And so it's not a big ask to hold people accountable, and I think that's great. And everyone thinks he's just taking a chainsaw to things. So, there's a lot of disinformation out there, but vital programs aren't going to be cut. There's a lot of things that probably do need to be cut. And if you're going to raise the debt ceiling, but at the same time you're making, $1 trillion in cuts this next year, and you're going to continue to move that forward, I think that's what the people voted for. Get rid of waste, fraud, and abuse. If there's 42 million people on food stamps in the United States that you find out 10 or 15 million of those are here illegally, I don't think most people would be cool with that. So, what he's doing is going in there and taking a look. So everything he's looking at isn't going to get cut, but the things that are egregious should go away, and I think most people would agree with that. So, we need to be careful not to cut vital programs, not just take a broad swath, and we need to look closer. But, what he's doing right now is a 30,000-foot level at government waste, fraud, and abuse, and then we're going to fine-tune it. And if he can cut $1 trillion in a year, that's amazing. And so, I'm for what he's doing. I think he's doing a great job. I don't think he has ulterior motives, and he's running on Trump's promises. We want to make American energy independence a thing again. We want to cut regulations. We want to secure the border. We want to strengthen national defense, an area near and dear to me with the work I've been doing on strategic forces. And so, I think we're headed in the right direction, and I think the president is delivering on his promises at warp speed.
Congressman, last question here in our remaining moments. It looks like there is a deal with Zelensky and Ukraine, $500 billion total agreement where the United States and Trump has worked all this out. We're going to get access to some of their minerals and some of their ports and some of their resources there in Ukraine. Your thoughts on the American people getting paid back for the investment that we've made into Ukraine?
Yeah, I think if Trump was accurate, he said we've invested $350 billion in Ukraine, and it was interesting. I read a CNN article the other day that was trashing Trump for what he's doing on Ukraine, siding with Putin and so on. But in the beginning of his article, he says Trump's just using the fact that we all know this war is not winnable for Ukraine, and then he goes on to berate him. Well, let's start with that. If the war's not winnable, it needs to end somehow. And we've had endless wars in Afghanistan. I think the American in Vietnam, all these things where we spent blood and treasure, and we've got nothing for it. The European nations have given about $100 billion, did it on a loan. So I think what he's doing is right. The war needs to end. If everyone admits that Ukraine can't win the war and drive Russia out, we're going to have some kind of a peace settlement. I don't like what happened there, but our focus now is mainly on China. So I like what he did to NATO, saying, hey, you need to police your own backyard. We need to focus on the Indo-Pacific where, the real action is heating up. And, we can't fight a two-front war with two major adversaries. So, I think Trump's got a good approach there. And, if everybody knew everything that was going on with these peer adversaries, I think that it would get their full attention. So, what he's done in Ukraine, I think will end up being popular in the end. But, anything he does, the media is going to demagogue, and it's just the life we live.
It is. All right, Congressman Scott DeJarlais, always appreciate having you on, and have a great rest of week.